Welcome. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Liz Wheeler Show. Happy Tuesday afternoon. I am absolutely delighted today to start the show by introducing our brand new series called Newsom versus Newsom. The purpose of this series, and you will see the very first episode of this series right here today on the Liz Wheeler Show. The purpose of this new series is because Gavin Newsom wants desperately to be president of the United States. I can't remember anybody in the history of politics who wanted to be president more than Gavin Newsom does. He may even eclipse Hillary Clinton level ambitions to be president of the United States. And so what Gavin Newsom is doing is embarking on a new campaign to rebrand himself, to whitewash his radicalism, to manipulate you into thinking that he's not as radical as he's been while governor of California. He wants to present himself now as a centrist, so he launched his new podcast. We've talked about his podcast a couple of times on the show, but what he's doing is very clear on this new podcast. He is verbally making statements that make him appear to be less of a radical leftist than he is. And so what we are going to do on this show, because this is a very strategic move that Gavin Newsom is engaging in. He's doing this so that when he runs for president and you and I sit here and say, Gavin Newsom, you were in favor of transgenderism for children, he can point to his episode of his new podcast and say, no, I said it was unfair when men play on women's sports. He's doing this in order to get the centrist vote, maybe Democrats who are disaffected, maybe Republicans who don't like Trump, who knows, to get this middle vote that politicians always attempt to win over. He's attempting to win them by manipulating and lying to them, and we are not going to let that happen. So we're launching a new series today called Newsom versus Newsom, episode 1. We're going to show to you shortly. You don't want to miss this. I'm really proud of it. I think you're really going to like it. Before we get to that, though, we are at day 100 of the Trump administration. In a sense, it feels like a lot longer than 100 days because President Trump's strategy over the past 3 months has been shock and awe. He hasn't let the mainstream media or the leftist resistance have even a fighting chance of keeping up with him. They can't launch an attack on him if he, on a policy that he talks about or introduces or an executive action that he signs, if he signs 100 in one day. There's simply not enough time in the world for them to stage their fake news propaganda campaigns against him if they can't keep up with him. It's been one of the best things about his first 100 days, in my opinion. But what I want to do today is I want to talk about the best things about his first 100 days, the things that still to come, meaning the things he must do to fulfill promises, and a couple of his misses. Also, I want to mention the maybe underappreciated aspect of the Trump administration so far that I predict will be the part that history remembers in the best sort of way in years to come. So this will just be a quick rundown. The best things that the Trump administration has done so far in their first 100 days is Doge. They have doged the administrative state. You guys know that for the past decade, I have been chanting, I have been yelling, I have been shouting from the rooftops to anyone that will listen, abolish the administrative state. If you want to drain the swamp, you got to do it. You got to abolish the administrative state. These executive agencies in the federal government stuffed to the gills with bureaucrats that we don't vote for, so we don't choose them when they are hired. We have no ability to fire them via the ballot box or via being their employer, even though we pay their paychecks. These people have been ruling us, literally ruling us. Congress passes legislation with very vague language. They kick it to the administrative state, these agencies, these unelected bureaucrats, and those bureaucrats decide what this vague language in the pieces of legislation means. They just twist it to mean whatever they want it to mean. And we have been governed by the administrative state. There's no way that any kind of corruption in our government goes away until this has been gutted. Well, one of the best things about Trump's first 100 days is Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk, who I would argue has been President Trump's best hire to date. Doge has taken a chainsaw. You remember the chainsaw I forget what government official gave a chainsaw. It might have been Argentine president to Elon Musk with Doge emblazoned on the chain. Elon Musk has taken the Doge chainsaw to over 75,000 government jobs, meaning 75,000 unelected bureaucrats have lost their job. They took a voluntary buyout, which was also part of the brilliance. Tens of thousands of other federal workers have been laid off, as they should be. This is probably one of the biggest wins of the Trump administration so far because it's going to have legacy. It's not just a win right now for this year, for this election, for this political cycle. This is going to have long-lasting repercussions. And then, of course, close runner-up, very close runner-up is the border crisis. Our nation has been invaded by illegal aliens because of Joe Biden's deliberate open borders policy, but the Trump administration reversed that. We now have illegal border crossings at the lowest level that we have seen in 60 years. 60 years, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal, which isn't exactly a friendly organization towards the Trump administration and the Trump agenda. Best things, the first 100 days to accomplish both dodging the administrative state and stopping our border crisis, including completely flipping the narrative on deportations. The majority of the American people now support deporting illegal aliens simply because they are here in our country against our laws. This is very different than the American people's mindset on illegal immigration in the past, and the Trump administration has already accomplished that. So that's what I would categorize as the best. Please give me your best. Let me know in the chat what you consider to be the most significant accomplishment thus far for the Trump administration. What I would like to see from the Trump administration still to come, they have not yet accomplished this in the first 100 days, is what I would call justice. You could also call this accountability. You can visually paint the picture of what justice or accountability means by picturing in your mind a perp walk, picturing a radical leftist politician, maybe former officials at the FBI, maybe Democrat operatives who have violated our laws, weaponized the federal government against us because we're conservative, Trump supporters, Christian, pro-life. We need to see actual justice, not just these people laid off or given buyouts or, their positions eliminated from the federal government. We need actual justice. Actual justice means people who broke the law and weaponized the federal government need to go to prison. We cannot have a repeat in this 47 administration of what happened with Hillary Clinton, where President Trump spent the entire campaign saying lock her up, and then he didn't. You can call it rising above it. We have to see perp walks. We have to see accountability. We have to see justice. And I am confident that we will still see that. But if I were the Trump administration, now that the first 100 days passed, that's kind of the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period has maybe come to an end. You need to show us some real justice. This, of course, you can juxtapose this with this shock and awe campaign. It's not a miss from the Trump administration. It's just there's increasing urgency for this justice to be served. All right. Now, what's the biggest miss of the first 100 days? Well, you could argue that the biggest miss is that President Trump's approval rating is the second lowest of any post-World War II president at 45%, this according to Gallup. But as you can see, I'm kind of laughing at this because, first of all, who really cares? I don't even know if this is accurate. Gallup poll, is this really accurate? Because think about 5 months ago. 5 months ago was when we cast our ballot for Donald Trump. 3 months ago was when he was inaugurated, and a majority of the American people voted for him. So now what? Gallup is trying to convince us that a majority of the American people don't like him? I don't know. I'm kind of at that crossroads between I don't care what Gallup says and I don't believe that what they say is true. You could make that argument that that's a miss, but I don't think that's a very strong argument. If I'm being perfectly honest, what is the biggest mistake the Trump administration has made? Well, the Epstein binders, obviously, it's not something that's going to permanently cripple them, but that was a pretty big misstep, at least perception-wise. They have the opportunity to correct that by being the most radically transparent administration in history. And there are many ways to do this. You can declassify all kinds of documents. And I'm not just talking about the Epstein files that were hidden from Pam Bondi by the SDNY. You can declassify everything. You can declassify. It's like we were talking about with Mike Benz on the show last week. You can declassify. This would be a Tulsi thing. You can declassify every document in the federal government related to the terms populist and populism. And you can see how the swamp targeted the populist movement, meaning you and I here in the United States. There's many ways to be the most radically transparent administration in history. But yeah, I mean, if we're being honest, and we are, that's what we do here, then the way that Pam Bondi rolled out those Epstein binders, and you guys know I walked through it. We don't need to relitigate it. The botched embargo that created blowback unfairly, but understandably on us, those of us who were at the White House that day, making it look like we were gatekeeping information or, teasing something that didn't exist because we weren't allowed yet to share what the real story was, which was that the deep state and the SDNY was hiding the full Epstein files, the full dearth of the Epstein files from Pam Bondi. We weren't allowed to post that yet. So it looked like we were presenting something that we weren't. So that's their biggest miss. But compare those two things. Compare like the biggest misses with what's still to come with the best of the first 100 days. And I would grade, get ready, get out your teacher red pen here. I would give the Trump administration a resounding A. There's no question in my mind. They've done phenomenally. And one of the most underreported things or underappreciated aspects of the Trump campaign, Trump administration, I should say, is how they have been pre-bunking the mainstream media. We talked yesterday how the media is revving their engines. They're getting ready to cover for the Democrats' coming violent resistance, which, mark my words, riots are going to hit the streets again, probably this summer at some point. If not sometime this year, probably this summer is what what prediction I will stick with. The mainstream media is gearing up to gaslight you when you notice that, to vilify you when you oppose that, to manipulate people's minds into thinking that those violent riots aren't really violent. They're justice. They're justified. But the Trump administration has deftly outmaneuvered the mainstream media, not just in winning the election, but in countering the strategy the mainstream media uses to lie about every Trump policy. The Trump administration has pre-bunked that by presenting the full information, not just in policy white paper form, but by releasing videos and photos and names of all the illegal aliens that they have been deporting so that you can see for yourself what's going on, that it's not just children being separated from their parents unfairly because they were here seeking a better life. No, it's terrorists and rapists and murderers and MS-13 gang members and human traffickers and, fentanyl drug dealers and all kinds of scummy criminal aliens who we don't want in our neighborhoods because they harm us and our communities and our country. One of the most underappreciated strategic wins of the Trump administration. Now, what part of the Trump administration, at least in these first 100 days, is going to go down in history? You ready for this? This is a controversial take, even among conservatives. President Trump's tariffs. I know, you're going to say, but are they really going to work? Aren't they going to cause things to be more expensive? Are they a tax? Well, I used to think so. I don't anymore because I studied the reality of what Trump is going to use the tariffs for, how the mechanism of tariffs work, that it is a means to an end, that it will cause other countries to actually trade fairly with the United States. And according to Trump, this is new just this week, the amount of revenue that the United States is going to bring in as a result of tariffs, meaning creating an equal playing field around the world, that income could replace income tax. Which means sometime in the near-ish future, you could not have to pay income tax anymore. This is what Trump said. Take a listen.
And we're going to make a lot of money, and we're going to cut taxes for the people of this country. It'll take a little while before we do that, but we're going to be cutting taxes. And it's possible we'll do a complete tax cut because I think the tariffs will be enough to cut all of the income tax. Now, we have a lot of debt that's been left to us, unfortunately, over many years. We'll take care of that. But the tariffs, if people only understood the tariffs, we're going to be giving people of this country a tremendous tax cut. And we're going to start with people making less than $200,000 a year.
Okay, this is one of my favorite videos of President Trump. You kind of don't think anything about it when you first watch him. It's just a reporter that asks him a question after he got off of Marine One. He's wearing his white Make America Great Again hat emblazoned in gold letters. Noise in the background. He's talking about tariffs. Your first reaction might be blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool, whatever. Moving on. No. This is one of my favorite videos of President Trump because he so very casually just lays out the entire strategy of what tariffs are going to do. Tariffs are going to result in such an increase in income from foreign nations that we're going to First, and this again is completely overlooked even by people on the right, first, we're going to be able to pay off our debt, which is why this hopefully complete abolition of income tax, it's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take a little time because first we have to use the income brought in by tariffs to pay off the debt. And then once the debt has been adequately paid off, then what are we going to do with that extra money that's coming in from all those tariffs? Well, we're no longer going to have to use American citizens' paychecks to pay for the function of our government. We can use the external revenue service instead of the internal revenue service. I love this. He tells you exactly what the strategy is. This, mark my words, is going to go down in history as the most powerful thing that President Trump did with his administration. He is restructuring not only the American economy to operate the way that it was originally intended, but he's actually restructuring the entire global economy in a way that maximizes prosperity, that harnesses America's influence in the world for good to put Americans first. My prediction. You can put a pin in that. We'll revisit it in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. Okay. Now, I would like to introduce to you our brand new series, Newsom versus Newsom. I'm very proud of this. I'm very excited to show you this. Gavin Newsom richly deserves to be to have his hypocrisy highlighted in this brand new series. We're going to get to that in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about one of the most important issues that faces our country. I would call it the most existential issue that faces our country physically and morally. And I'm talking about abortion. You know that I'm pro-life. I believe, both scientifically and morally, that a human life begins at the moment of conception. And because that human life begins at the moment of conception, we have a responsibility, again, legally, scientifically, ethically, and morally, to give that human being, regardless of the fact that, or regardless of the location of that unborn person, the protections that that person deserves. Yet we're failing miserably in our country. We have millions of abortions, 1 million abortions approximately every year. The good news, of course, is that this is not a lost cause. There are people out there working very hard to save unborn babies' lives, and I'm proud to partner with Preborn in this ministry. Preborn's network of clinics rescued over 67,000 babies from abortion last year alone. But you're a big part of this. Preborn's valuable work cannot be done without your help. Your tax-deductible donation of $28 sponsors one ultrasound. And did you know when a mom sees the picture of her unborn baby on an ultrasound screen, it doubles that baby's chance at life? So my question to you is a challenge. How many babies can you save today? Please donate your best gift today. Just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/Liz. That's preborn.com/Liz. I truly can't think of a more powerful, a more profound, a more influential, a more altruistic, a more morally stalwart thing that you could do with your money. And I mean that utterly sincerely. As abortion continues to rise, Preborn is expanding their life-affirming care in the darkest corners of our nation to help more hurting women to save more babies. If you have the means, I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but if you do, would you consider a leadership gift to save babies in a big way? Your tax-deductible donation of $15,000 will place a machine in a needy women's center, saving countless lives for years to come. If this is you, go to preborn.com/Liz. Okay, Newsom versus Newsom. I'm going to introduce our brand new series to you in just a moment, but I do want to mention first, as the first 100 days of the Trump administration has come to a conclusion, we have also been able to identify very clearly what the resistance to the Trump administration is going to be, how the Democrats are going to try to stop the Trump administration. It's essentially a three-pronged resistance strategy. The first is what we talked about yesterday, which is violent riots. You can call them protests. They're not really protests. Violence in the streets. That happened in 2020. It also happened, we saw the Antifa autonomous zones that were prior to 2020. This is coming again. If you didn't watch yesterday's episode, you should, because it's a precursor of what's to come. That's the first prong in the resistance strategy of the left. The second prong is the judicial insurrection that we see. All of these judges abusing their power to try to stop Trump, issuing nationwide injunctions that they have no right to issue. This is kind of coupled with the lawfare that we see against Trump. A lot of the judicial insurrection is a result of the Norm Eisen, Mark Elias lawsuits that are filed against the Trump administration. That's prong two. So we have violence, judicial insurrection, and lawfare. And then we have mainstream media lies. The mainstream media is trying to psychologically manipulate you into feeling a certain way about either Trump or tariffs or Trump supporters in order to make you more palatable to the lies of the Democrat politicians. This is their three-pronged resistance strategy. And the point of this is to slow Trump's shock and awe campaign down to the point that the Democrats are hoping to win back control of both houses of Congress in next year's midterm elections. And of course, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to stage an impeachment of Donald Trump, the same way that they staged their Ukraine impeachment. They're going to have some sort of so-called whistleblower who, heard Trump say or do something which is a high crime or misdemeanor, and the Congress needs to take him out. Mark my words. That's what they're waiting for. In fact, they're not really waiting even to take control of both houses. They are already starting. There's a Democrat rep. Maybe you've never heard of him before. His name is Sri Tanadar. He's a Democrat from Michigan. He filed impeachment articles against President Trump yesterday. This is what he said. Take a look.
This is Congressman Sri Tanadar. Donald Trump has already done real damage to our democracy, but defying a unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, that has to be the final straw. It's time we impeach Donald J. Trump. The court said the wrongfully deported Kilmer Garcia must be allowed to return and receive due process. Trump ignored it. He ignored the Constitution. He ignored the very checks and balances that keep our democracy intact. This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a dangerous, deliberate pattern. That's why today I introduced a resolution to impeach Donald J. Trump, outlining 7 articles of impeachment. Article 1, obstruction of justice and abuse of executive
Does he read them
power.
all?
From denying due process to unlawful deportations, Trump defied court orders.
Okay, enough.
Article 2.
We can stop. We get the idea. This guy hates Trump and he wants to use impeachment as a tool to take Trump out. We got it. First of all, is it just me or does this Congressman Sri Tanadar look exactly like Indian Jimmy Kimmel? Like even the way that he's like leaning on the desk, the way that he looks, dead on. You might be wondering, though, why is this Democrat introducing articles of impeachment before the Democrats have control of both houses of Congress? Because there's simply no chance that Trump is going to be impeached if the Republicans have control of the Senate, right? Well, Laura Loomer reported on, this is pretty interesting. I want to bring this up so you can see this on the screen. This is why Congressman Tanadar is introducing these articles of impeachment now, even though they don't stand a chance. This is what Laura Loomer reported. The articles of impeachment against President Trump is a financial scam, and Loomer Unleashed has just proven it and exposed it. She wrote, basically, Rep. Sri Tanadar has nearly $800,000 in campaign debt from his own self-financing. He's trying to use the articles of impeachment as a financial scam to have donors donate to impeach Trump. And then he's going to use the money to get himself out of debt, as you can see from his FEC filings below. And she includes screenshots of this. The DCCC will promote his fundraising links to help him get out of debt. That's why he was chosen to file the articles of impeachment. It's a scam. Don't let anyone gaslight you and tell you it's legitimate, Laura Loomer writes. Rep. Sri Tanadar is from India, and now he's trying to scam real Americans with blood ties to our soil, to the soil of our nation, so he can get out of debt. Maybe he should be deported, she says. If the GOP had any balls, she concludes, they would investigate him. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue. That is like a fairly clever, and I mean that in the slimy way, a fairly clever scam. Like, why this guy? No one's ever even heard of Rep. Sri Tanadar. Why him? Well, because the DCCC wants to help him pay off his nearly $1 million campaign debt. And they're going to trick people into donating, thinking that it's going to go to an impeach Trump effort, but actually it's just going to pay off his credit card bill. What an absolute loser. Good reporting on Laura Loomer to catch that. All right. We're finally here. Our first episode, our premiere episode number 1 of our new series, Newsom versus Newsom. What is Gavin Newsom doing? Gavin Newsom wants to be president more than any other person in our country. Gavin Newsom's ambitions for the Oval Office exceed, I would argue, even Hillary Clinton's. And that's a pretty high bar. Gavin Newsom wants to be president so bad that he needs to radically remake who he is in order to appeal to the American people, because right now he's one of the most unappealing politicians out there. So what is Gavin Newsom's campaign strategy? It's pretty elementary. Gavin Newsom launched a podcast recently, and his strategy became evident about the first minute of that podcast. Here's the strategy. Gavin Newsom is going to sit in his quite poorly constructed podcast studio with someone from the right. Gavin Newsom is going to be chummy with this person from the right. Gavin Newsom is going to portray himself as relatable, willing to have the conversation, trying to see the other side's point of view. And then, importantly, Gavin Newsom is going to make a statement that makes Gavin Newsom appear to be a centrist. He is going to, with his words, move himself from the left side of the aisle to the middle. And the reason that he's doing this is, on a podcast specifically, is to collect the sound bites of him saying these ostensibly centrist things. The reason that he wants to collect sound bites is so in a year and a half or 2 years, when he actually launches his bid for president in 2028, he'd probably launch it in 2027, he is going to have an absolute library of sound bites that he can trot out anytime one of us says, actually, Gavin Newsom is one of the most radical governors and politicians in the entire country. Well, whatever topic we're talking about, whatever issue we're contesting, Gavin Newsom will release one of his library of sound bites in which he sounds like a centrist on that very issue in order to deny the reality of his radicalism. And we on the Liz Wheeler Show are not going to let that happen. And so without further ado, let me present to you our first episode of Newsom versus Newsom. In the very first inaugural episode of Gavin Newsom's podcast, he hosted Charlie Kirk, our friend Charlie Kirk, who did very well speaking to Gavin Newsom. And Charlie Kirk challenged Governor Newsom on transgenders playing in women's sports, biological men competing against girls. This is what Gavin Newsom said about it. Take a listen.
It's like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed?
Well, look at that. Gavin Newsom appears to be in the center. Does he have a common sense viewpoint? Does Gavin Newsom, did he not just express that it's unfair for biological men, even if they identify as women, to play in women's sports? Well, maybe he's not such a radical after all, is he? Oh, wait a second. Wait just a second. Now it is time for the reality, because that is just such a soundbite as we referenced earlier. The reality is that Gavin Newsom's actions speak louder than his words. Gavin Newsom's actions contradict the words that came out of his mouth. Gavin Newsom's been governor of California for a long time now. He's had every opportunity to enact policies that would actually protect women from men in their sports, would actually establish or acknowledge reality when it comes to the transgender ideology. And every time Gavin Newsom had an opportunity to do this, he chose the transgender ideology. For example, in 2024, this is just a couple months ago, last year, California prohibited schools from creating policies that would require teachers or school administrators to notify parents if their son or daughter requests to identify with neopronouns or change their names or use the bathroom of the opposite sex or play on a girls' sports teams if they're a boy. Let me repeat that. Schools in California under Gavin Newsom's administration are not even allowed on an individual basis to create policies that notify parents if their child transes in school. Gavin Newsom. That's Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom presides as governor of California over the California Department of Education. And part of the California Department of Education, the education code, allows men to play on girls' sports teams. Gavin Newsom has the authority and the power to stop that, and yet he didn't. Contradicting the words that Gavin Newsom spoke. Go back a couple of years, 2022, Gavin Newsom signed a bill into law making California what he calls a sanctuary state for transgender identifying children. So you can juxtapose Gavin Newsom's words. He sounds like a centrist. I appreciate that. You're a good person, Charlie Kirk. It's unfair if men play in women's sports. We just need to be compassionate towards transgender identifying people. Juxtapose that, his words, with the reality of his actions. The reality of his actions demonstrate without a shred of doubt that Gavin Newsom has not changed his mind on any of these issues. Gavin Newsom has been the governor of California since 2019. He has had 6 years to protect women in sports, and he has not done it. He has done the opposite and made girls less safe playing sports. And by the way, Gavin Newsom is also just teeing himself up. President Trump signed an executive order requiring states to protect girls from boys in their sports and boys in their locker rooms. And if states, the state of Maine is a good case study for this, if states refuse to do so, then the Trump administration has demonstrated a willingness to cut off federal funding to that state until that state complies. Well, Gavin Newsom's state, does he plan to comply? Well, if California changes his policies in light of Trump's executive order, Gavin Newsom doesn't want it to look like he obeyed Trump. Gavin Newsom wants you to think that he had a change of heart, that he had a change of mind. Do not be fooled. There are hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding on the line if Gavin Newsom does not comply, and he's simply setting himself up to make it look like it was voluntary. It is not. Gavin Newsom's actions speak louder than his words, and this is but episode 1 of Newsom versus Newsom. Rest assured, we will be back with more episodes of Newsom versus Newsom. But also, it does beg the question, who else is going to run for president on the Democrat side in 2028? Because they're all planning. They're all getting ready. They've really begun their campaigns, and there are already some front runners. We're going to get into the most likely Democrat presidential candidates for 2028 in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about the 3 most corrupt institutions in America. That would be big education, the administrative state, and big pharma. And they spend a lot of time, those 3, conspiring to limit your freedom. I spend a lot of time strategizing how to maximize my freedom, especially given the conspiracy against us. Here's how I do it. Medical freedom is very important to me. It means that I have the capacity, the ability, and the right to make decisions for my health and my family's health based on what I think, not based on what a government official or a big pharma, a profiteering big pharma firm requires me to do or restricts me from doing. It's why I am proud to partner with All Family Pharmacy, because All Family Pharmacy believes in your right to choose your own healthcare without big pharma or government interference. And it's very easy to make use of All Family Pharmacy. They work with doctors to provide the prescriptions directly to you. You just go online, no waiting rooms, no pharmacy lines. You just order online. Your medications are shipped straight to your door. What medications am I talking about? All Family Pharmacy has over 200 medications available. I'm talking ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics, medbendazole, everything you need. And shipping is very quick. Orders ship within 2 to 4 business days, or if you need it immediately, you can get overnight shipping. All Family Pharmacy is a family-owned business. They put you before profit. That's why they've been trusted by over 100,000 Americans. Visit them. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz. You can use my code Liz10 at checkout and get 10% off your order today. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz, code Liz10 if you value your medical freedom, which I know you do, because I do too. All right. I told you yesterday that I gave my brother-in-law and I'm going to bring his text up because I want to read it to you. I gave my brother-in-law for Easter a box of Kexi cookies. Hold on, too many texts in my inbox here. Let me bring this up because you're going to want to read this text message. I gave him a box of Kexi cookies. I know he has a sweet tooth. I thought he would like this. And he didn't eat them right away on Easter. A couple days later, this is a text I get from him. He goes, I have been alive for 42 years. I have been enthusiastically eating cookies for 40 of those years. The white chocolate strawberry cookie is among the best cookies I have ever eaten, easily in the top 3. And then I didn't respond right away because I didn't see it right away. A couple minutes later, he double texts me and he goes, dare I say ... it could be the best cookie of all time. Kexi Cookies is a gourmet cookie company founded by Pat Gray's family. Yes, the same Pat Gray we work with here at Blaze Media. They make incredible bakery fresh cookies. I mean, I don't even need to tell you about them. My brother-in-law told you about them. And I think that that he didn't even mean that as a public endorsement. He was just thanking me for the gift. Go to Kexi.com. Use my code Liz15 for an exclusive 15% discount. That's Kexi.com, Liz15 for a 15% discount. Okay, who else is going to run for president in 2028 on the Democrat side? I'm going to walk through some of these candidates, and we're gonna analyze them with four questions: why it's obvious they're running, what their biggest strength is, what their biggest weakness is, and then we're going to rate them as a candidate. So let's start with someone who is almost 100% sure to be running for president, and this has become very evident in recent days, and that is none other than Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's right, AOC. Take a look. She's on tour right now with Bernie Sanders on this Against Oligarchy tour or something like that. They're playing to rich liberal venues. But this is an ad AOC cut. Take a look at this, and then we'll analyze it.
You know, Idaho, I am so touched being here. I'm a girl from the Bronx. To be welcomed here in this state, all of us together, seeing our common cause, this is what this country is all about. Don't let them trick us into thinking we are enemies. Don't let them trick us into thinking we can be separated into rural and urban, black and white and Latino. We are one.
Alexandria, they told us this was a conservative state. They got it wrong.
And Idaho, I know that looking around here, it can feel impossible for Republicans out here to be defeated. That's not true. It's simply not true. And from the waitress who is now speaking to you today from this podium, I can tell you, impossible is nothing.
And as Alexandria just said, when we stand together, when we do not allow them to divide us up, there is no stopping us.
Miracles start with mustard seeds. And that is what each and every one of you represent today. Small miracles of faith in ourselves, in each other, and in the refusal to give up.
She is so running. She is so running. And this is what I caution. This is what I caution conservatives. Don't underestimate this woman. She might be absurd. She is. She might sometimes be embarrassing to herself, very cringy. She is. All of those things. Do not underestimate this woman for a couple of reasons. First of all, she's doing the same thing that Gavin Newsom is doing. You notice two things about what she said. First of all, she said Latino. She didn't say Latinx. Why? Because a year ago, she was saying Latinx. Why the change now? Well, because people think that Latinx is stupid, and AOC wants to pander to leftists who are not as woke as she is. But make no mistake, she believes that Latino people should be called Latinx. But she didn't say that in this video because she wants to manipulate you into thinking that she's just a common sense leftist, The other thing she did is she used Christian imagery, a miracle, the miracle of the mustard seed. Do you think that AOC stands for Christian values, or is she trying to pander to Christians, making them think that there is some kind of compatibility between Christianity and radical leftism? She is portraying herself as being centrist, but here's the reason that you shouldn't underestimate AOC. AOC is going to go on tour, just like she is with Bernie Sanders, and she is going to preach a message of economic populism. And it's going to appear to mirror the message that Donald Trump used in 2016 that actually won him the election. Because when Donald Trump in 2016 looked at white working class in America and said, I see you. I see that you've been abused. I see that you've been taken advantage of. I see that the elite hate you. I'm going to stand up for you. I'm going to stand in between you and those who are taking advantage of you. That's why Donald Trump won in 2016, because no one had ever stood up for the white working class before. Now, Donald Trump, of course, is standing up for the white working class in America in an ethical, moral way, in line with the values of liberty and justice in our country. And AOC's value system, we'll get to in a minute, but on the surface, her message is going to sound the same. She's going to look at people in the audience and she's going to say, billionaires are taking advantage of you. The oligarchy is trying to control you. You need a champion because you've been left behind. You're marginalized. I'll be your voice. I'll fight for you. And it's going to sound similar to Trump's message in 2016. And people are going to fall for it. The problem, of course, is that if we get AOC, what would this mean? Well, it would mean no more gas-powered cars. You wouldn't be allowed to eat red meat. You couldn't even fly on a plane like AOC is all around the country because of carbon emissions or whatever from jet fuel. You're going to have redistribution of wealth. You're not going to have suburbs anymore. You're going to have these little micro cities that AOC wants so that they can better control you. She's going to take wealth away from people and give it to other people because she's going to be the one in charge. She's going to clamp down on Christians practicing their faith in public and free speech and your Second Amendment right and your due process rights. Under AOC, it's going to be a nightmare. Her version of so-called economic populism will result in authoritarian rule and government taking over the means of production and distribution. We know AOC is a socialist. We know the implications of socialism, but don't underestimate the seduction of AOC's message, because she's not going to sell herself as a socialist, and most young people especially don't view the word socialism with the same revulsion as the older generation who has a better understanding based on socialism existing up close and personal to many people. Young people don't view that word and aren't automatically repelled from that word. They view it as, oh, AOC wants to fight for us, and she's going to use economic populism as her key message here. So as a rating AOC as is she a viable candidate? What kind of threat would she be? She's pretty high up there. She's about 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for AOC. And then we have Al Gore. You remember Al Gore? Al Gore seems like he's trying to revitalize his political career. He went on with Bill Maher, and he sounded like he was trying to enter the presidential race again. Take a listen to this.
I think you're totally right that he's not Hitler. I've never said he is, but something is different about this administration compared to any other that we have ever had. And our American liberty. Now, I think American democracy is more resilient than a lot of people give us credit for it being, but we are really in danger right now, and we have got to rally the grassroots to take back the destiny of America.
So you sound like you're ready to get back on the campaign trail. I haven't seen you in a while. You know, people age at different rates. You aged really well. I don't know how old you are now.
I benefit from low expectations.
But, the Democratic Party needs somebody who's got nothing to lose. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think there may be a rising demand for another president in his late 70s.
Who knew that Al Gore actually has some entertaining quips to offer? Al Gore, I mean, how old is this guy now? That actually is a valid question. He was, vice president when I was born, I think? When I was a child. Al Gore, of course, is a climate change crazy. His strength is that he's been around politics forever so that he knows how everything works in the swamp. His weakness is, I don't know how some of these old school politicians who operated before social media, I don't really know how they would do. I mean, he's 77 years old. 77, so he'd be 80 years old when he's running. I don't know. I don't know if the American people want that anymore. I feel like we made an exception for Trump because he is like the youngest late 70s that we have ever seen. But after Joe Biden, I feel like our expectation for the age of political candidates is going to be significantly lower than we've tolerated in the last few years. I don't know if Al Gore has what it takes to do like the podcast rounds, though. Is he authentic, or is he just old school politician where he regurgitates these sort of highfalutin political slogans? His rating as a candidate, I would rate him probably no higher than a 5. No higher than a 5, because he definitely wants it, but I don't think he has name recognition or any kind of draw to the younger crowd. All right, then we have Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, Andrew Cuomo. Can you imagine the audacity of the former governor of New York thinking, he's running for mayor right now of New York City, but he's got his eyes on the White House. And he's already starting to run ads, ostensibly mayoral, race ads, but you know he's really running for the White House. Take a look.
I love supporting Governor Cuomo because I know what he stands for. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Cuomo, for investing in our education and investing in New York's education. I know he always been for us, and I'm happy to vote for him as mayor. Go Cuomo, go Cuomo, go!
So this ad cracked me up because it's so evident right in this ad what Governor Cuomo's weakness is. You know it's not a good candidate if you can't even have the candidate say anything on screen without that detracting from the popularity of the candidate and the likelihood of a voter choosing to vote for that candidate. Andrew Cuomo can't even speak for himself. They have to have other people telling you about him, with him just kind of in the background. The fact that anybody would vote for Andrew Cuomo after what he did during COVID is beyond bananas crazy. Beyond bananas crazy. And here's the thing. I actually give Andrew Cuomo a very low rating. I don't think that he's more than a 3. No, he is connected. He's definitely connected in New York politics. He definitely knows his way around the swamp. He definitely has the sort of charisma, if you will, that politicians can handle themselves in media interviews. And, you know, maybe he's likable in person. I don't know. That's, you can kind of see that when he's glad handing people. But people aren't going to forget the tens of thousands, their grandparents in nursing homes who died because Andrew Cuomo during COVID. People are not going to forget that. This guy's going nowhere. Then we have Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, this is the only time I've ever seen Elizabeth Warren crack, by the way. She's always so inauthentic, so rehearsed. Elizabeth Warren cracked when she was pressed about Joe Biden's cognitive decline and her defense of it. Take a look.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said like, I had not seen decline.
She's trying to read.
And I hadn't at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. You know, the thing is, he was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him. Live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, it is... The question is, what are we going to do now?
Okay.
She's dying inside. Look at her. She's dying inside. First of all, the only time I've ever seen her break character, she's dying inside because she knows she lied. She knows she was caught in a lie. She knew that Joe Biden was in severe cognitive decline, and she covered up for him because that's what all Democrats and all mainstream media were forced to do. This guy, he's the host of the Talk Easy podcast. His name is Sam Fragoso. He's actually very decent at interviewing a leftist, which is usually not the case, and he caused Elizabeth Warren to crack. Now, Elizabeth Warren's strengths, of course, are that she's like fairly energetic and she has a plan for everything. That is probably a strength in a politician. Her weaknesses are that she's only 1,027th or whatever, 1,024th Native American, and she published a recipe for powwow chicken because she was pretending to be a fake Native American. Elizabeth Warren's going nowhere. Done. Elizabeth Warren. Okay, here's a guy, though, that you actually, Republicans should not underestimate the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. Eric Adams, he's not pandering the same way that some of these other politicians are pretending to go to the center while actually existing on the radical left. Eric Adams, because he was targeted, because he has been the victim of radical leftist lawfare, Eric Adams seems to have had a sincere change of heart on some issues that are pretty important to the American people. Eric Adams went on the Flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz, and this does not sound like a radical leftist to me. Take a listen.
But it is a shot at your like political career.
Oh,
and is it frustrating to not, or do you know who you think it came from? Like, is Biden aware of this, or is it the people that are like underneath Biden? Is it completely separate?
That's a great question. That's a great question. You know, there are a lot of people, you know, this, you know, and I don't want to sound conspiracy theory, but there's a permanent government. There are people that see presidents and mayors come and go. Their attitudes will wait you out. You know what book is a great book, man? Everybody should read the book, Kash Patel's Government Gangsters.
Okay.
You
need
should
him on the pod.
Yeah, you should read that book, man.
Okay.
Cash breaks this down.
What is he? And is this what
He's
somebody,
now the FBI director?
Of course. We love Cash.
Yeah.
But is this like what people refer to? And I think this word has been used too much, but like the deep state or whatever it is.
It's not used too much. It's real, brother.
Oh, really?
Brother, think about it.
Who's part of it? Like, what are there current like senators and that kind of stuff, or is it people that we don't even know but they're always existing?
And I have never seen anyone do such a good job of defining that deep state. You should have him on.
I would. Tell him to come on.
You should have him on.
We would love it.
The way he's
probably listening right now, right?
The way, because he was in. It's like me talking about what happens in NYPD after 22 years.
Yeah.
Cash was in the DOD. He was in the FBI. He prosecuted terrorists. So he comes with this wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And the way he breaks it down,
yeah,
it's just unbelievable what this deep state is about and why it's so important for Americans that we cannot have a weaponizing of our prosecutorial powers. Now imagine the Southern District, right? Southern District of New York. That's one of the most powerful U.S. Attorney's office. In their mind, they say we're sovereign. You know what that means?
What do you mean they said they're sovereign?
That they don't have to answer to anyone.
Oh.
They don't have to answer to the president. They don't have to answer to the U.S. Attorney in Washington, Attorney General in Washington. They believe they're a sovereign entity. You're not elected. You know what I'm saying? Imagine an entity believing they don't have to answer to anyone but
you
their
have to
entity.
answer to the people, and ultimately the people that we put in power.
Okay. I mean, you heard. I actually don't disagree with a single thing that Eric Adams said in that clip. He sincerely identified the threat of the deep state. He called it the permanent government. He's advertising Kash Patel's book. This guy, do not underestimate this guy. He's not a conservative. And listen, we have seen a lot of red pilling arcs over the past 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We've seen Elon Musk. We've seen Bill Ackman. We've seen Joe Rogan. We've seen all kinds of leftists. We've seen RFK. We've seen Nicole Shanahan. We've seen all kinds of leftists see the light and become conservatives. Maybe that's what'll happen with Eric Adams. I hope it is. I sincerely hope it is. Both for him personally, also politically. Do not underestimate this guy, because that's going to be very relatable to the American people if he acknowledges not only the existence of the deep state, but the threat of the deep state to our freedoms. And maybe you only understand this as a leftist if you have been targeted by the deep state, which Eric Adams has. So I would rate his very strong candidate, very strong, probably the strongest of the pack, except for the fact that I don't think he has the universal name recognition that some of these other politicians do. And then, of course, we have your perennial candidates, your Hakeem Jeffries, your Cory Booker, your Pete Buttigieg. Obviously, Tim Walz is going to try to run. What a joke. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, we talked about him on the show yesterday. He wants, take to the streets so Republicans can't have peace. These people are not going to be the Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Bookers. I mean, they're always going to run for president, and they're probably never going to win. They're just going to fundraise off of it, which is what they've done before. But these people are starting to run. The Democrats are starting to, when I say get it together, I don't mean organize themselves, but they're starting to plan for 2028. And these are their leading candidates. AOC is one of their leading candidates. Gavin Newsom is one of their leading candidates. Eric Adams is one of their leading candidates. And then you have the rest trickling below. You can rate them in the comment section and let me know if there's anybody else that we should be keeping an eye on over the course of the next couple of years. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to talk about would-be Trump assassin Ryan Ruth. A new Department of Justice revelation exposes the fact that Ryan Ruth was texting with a human smuggler in Mexico to plot how to get Afghans across the U.S. border illegally. And Ryan Ruth's attorneys don't want these text messages from Ryan Ruth to be introduced in court in this obvious prosecution of Ryan Ruth for attempting to kill Donald Trump. They say that it's not relevant. The Department of Justice says, yeah, it is relevant because this is how Ryan Ruth planned in advance how he was going to escape the country if he were successful in killing Donald Trump. It's crazy. We're going to talk about that on the show tomorrow. I do want to take a moment to celebrate some big news at Blaze TV. We are excited to officially welcome Nicole Shanahan and her show Back to the People to the Blaze family. I cannot tell you personally how excited I am about this. Nicole is a Silicon Valley attorney, an entrepreneur, and an advocate who's spent years fighting for transparency, for freedom, for real change. She's been a major voice in the MAHA movement, worked alongside RFK Jr. to push for a government that actually works for the people, not for the elites. But Nicole's journey is so much deeper than this. After years in the tech world, she experienced a powerful personal transformation that led her to rediscover a deep connection to her faith. She recently was baptized as a Christian. That new perspective shapes everything she's doing now. You are going to love her show. On her brand new Blaze TV show, Back to the People, Nicole digs into the conversations that the mainstream media is ignoring. She brings together experts and activists and everyday people to tackle the tough issues, to share untold stories, to find real solutions rooted in truth and humanity. It's all about bridging gaps for her, for fostering real understanding, helping you connect with the world in a deeper, more meaningful way. You can get a sneak peek of Nicole before she hits Blaze TV on her YouTube at Nicole Shanahan. That's youtube.com/Nicole-Shanahan. You can just type her name in the search bar. You'll find it. Welcome to Blaze TV, Nicole. We are so thrilled to have you as part of the team. Also, I want to make sure that you are aware of where we are right now, because let's be honest, conservatives, we're winning this first 100 days of the Trump administration. It's a pretty sweet victory, is it not? Our movement is gaining ground. People around us are waking up. The mainstream media leftist narrative is cracking. The momentum seems, is it finally shifting? Well, the answer to all of that is yes. However, the fight is, of course, not over, not even close. That's why Blaze TV exists, because in a world full of noise, we need a stronghold for bold voices, free thinkers, fearless commentary that makes sense of all the chaos that is swirling about us. At Blaze TV, we've built a home for some of the strongest, smartest voices in conservative media, people who tell it like it is, ask the tough questions that the mainstream media won't touch, and aren't afraid to challenge the narrative. When you subscribe to Blaze TV, you're not just watching content, you're supporting a movement. You're backing creators who think for themselves, speak boldly, and refuse to be silenced by big tech or corporate media. You're supporting investigative journalism that exposes corruption, original documentaries that shine a light on the deep state. It's everything that the networks won't show you, delivered on your terms, on any device, anytime. And it starts at just $8 a month, the price of a fancy cup of coffee, for goodness sake. When you use my promo code Liz at checkout, that's only 26 cents a day to stand with a platform that stands with you. Go to blazetv.com/Liz and subscribe today. That's blazetv.com/Liz, promo code Liz at checkout. And if you use my promo code, you'll save $20 right now off our annual plan. blazetv.com/Liz, promo code Liz. Okay, like I said, make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're going to dive a little deeper into this would-be Trump assassin. It's weird, isn't it, how we just don't know a lot about this guy, even though he has a pretty enormous footprint online and some very shady international connections that for some reason the mainstream media and the left don't want us to talk about. So, of course, that's what we're going to do. Join us tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe so you catch us when we go live tomorrow on YouTube, on Rumble, on Facebook, on X. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.